it turns out that the Ministry of Defence has been training the IDF.
Yes, not content with just voting their way in the United Nations, giving them cover, not just selling them weaponry, when they said they were going to stop doing so at some point, and flying RAF Akrotiri flights, directly aiding and abetting. They're also, literally training military at UK bases.
So this is an article from October last year, and this was referencing the fact that they had admitted that fact when James Heappey was asked this.
Yes.
In that year, specifically with regards to training, that they had a new defence agreement as well with the IDF too, which they were keeping all hush-hush at the time. And there's obviously been a change of government since that story was originally broke, when James Heappey was questioned on this. And Luke Pollard was asked by Rachel Maskell in the Commons,
Indeed.
Are we still training members of the IDF? And he says that they are.
Indeed so. Rachel Maskell, Labour MP. To ask the Secretary of State for Defence when the last time was that a member of the Israeli Defence Forces was trained by the UK Armed Forces. Straightforward. To which Mr. Pollard suggests, as part of routine defence engagement with Israel, the UK is currently training a limited number of Israeli Defence Force personnel on UK-based training courses.
So all of the stuff about, the genocide is intolerable, the actions by Israel are intolerable, from Keir Starmer and from David Lammy.
Yeah.
On top of the fact they go, no, we're doing something. We've suspended 8% of the arms licenses, and we have put sanctions on 2 ministers and the settler from the Netflix documentary, or maybe even Channel 4 documentary, from the Louis Theroux video.
Yeah.
That is our token gesture. That is our virtue signal that we have done to show that we're not fully, entirely backing the Israeli government's genocide to the hilt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are still giving 92% of the arms licenses. We're still flying spy planes over Gaza from RAF Akrotiri. On top of this, the Ministry of Defence is directly training members of the IDF to better kill Palestinians.
Yeah, they claim that the Israeli government's actions are intolerable, and yet they seem to be tolerating them very easily, actively supporting and aiding and abetting the supposedly intolerable actions.
It doesn't make it seem very intolerable when you're actively supporting it, when you're actively facilitating it.
They've got such a muddled legal position now because of the piecemeal nonsense. They've put some sanctions now on Smotrich and Ben-Gvir for their genocidal bullshit, right? For their talking about the murder and displacement of Palestinians. But they are, like, as I say, still selling them weapons, still doing reconnaissance flights for them, and actively training the forces of a government that have genocidal ministers.
The previous defence minister, which was the defence minister at the time we started this defence training programme for IDF soldiers, right? That is the defence minister who has been prosecuted for war crimes and crimes against humanity by the ICC. And of course, the Prime Minister of Israel is the same one that was being indicted for crimes against humanity and war crimes.
Literally has an arrest warrant out for him. I mean, in many respects, sanctioning Benjamin Netanyahu would solve some of that issue for the UK government, because they wouldn't need to invoke the ICC at all if they just banned him from travelling here in the first place, which they will never do because they're spineless cowards.
Absolutely. I mean, not even cowards, just monsters, right? This isn't a case of them wanting to do it but being too scared. They actively don't want to do it. They actively do not want to break up our military and diplomatic relationships with Israel to the point of not doing arms embargoes, not doing trade sanctions, sending off fucking Ian Austin to go and have a look at their railways and ports, whilst training their soldiers to better kill Palestinians, and on top of this, flying spy flights for them over Gaza. It's sickening.
Well, I think it's something of a mixture, I think, of out-and-out Zionism from some of them, and I think cowardice or careerism on the other, that if they felt they could get away with it, the Americans wouldn't punish them too heavily or whatever. It would be more convenient now to sort of distance themselves from Israel in a way that they're just not going to do, because America would destroy them. So it is sort of cowardice in that respect. Like David Lammy, I don't believe for a second believes any of the things he says about this, but he's a careerist and a coward.
I think he maybe has some level of self-rationalization that he might have forced himself to change his mind so that he could allay his doubts over the role that he's committing in being a facilitator of war crimes, allegedly.
I mean, yeah, there's certainly cognitive dissonance and self-delusion, I'm sure. And again, it depends to what extent that's the case. I can't imagine he sleeps very well at night, and neither does he deserve to.
I mean, true. Yeah, very true. He does not deserve to do so. But honestly, just I'm at my wit's end with this stuff. Because again, what's so frustrating is the hypocrisy and the deliberate desire to try and hoodwink the public by making public statements in the Commons with all this loaded language of, no, we stand against, there must be a change of course, this is intolerable. When in reality, behind the scenes, they continue to arm and aid and diplomatically support and provide international diplomatic cover for war crimes. It's crazy.
Yeah. And there's a sort of wider disgusting element to this about how the fact that the so-called democratic governments of the Western world don't actually represent their populaces. Let's ignore America because America's fucking mental. Let's say Europe, right? Consistently, supermajorities of the population want much stronger action. They want the Western governments to force Israel to the table. They want sanctions on people in the Israeli government, and they believe it to be genocide. And yet, Western governments consistently take the exact opposite approach. They don't represent their people at all.
This might just be the one issue where public opinion and state policy across Europe, across the West broadly, is just completely out of sync, completely divergent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even the German public have a negative view of Israel now. Like, that's unthinkable.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Israel had an almost unassailable position in Germany, to the point where even the German left were pro-Israel until very recently. It led to all kinds of very strange situations where you had Antifa flags with the Israeli flag on them, and just mad shit like that. Talking of cognitive dissonance, but now their actions are so grotesque. Like, there are only so many times you can say this is a safe zone and then bomb the safe zone before people realise maybe they're not the good guys. And so even the German people are now like, this is too fucking much.
Well, the thing is, you mentioned America at the start. Well, let's ignore America because they're crazy. But, like, of course, the Republicans are crazy. We know the Republicans are crazy, right? But what's been super interesting to watch is that Democratic Party voters have basically heel-turned on Israel as a political group, purely on grounds of the fact that now there's a different government aiding the genocide, which I find quite funny, of course. It is still team sports as far as liberals are concerned, right? But I don't think it's necessarily team sports in that if it's something that Trump does, then they dislike it. I think a lot of these liberals secretly knew that what Israel was doing was monstrous and then essentially duped themselves into pretending that it wasn't bad because they wanted to support Democrats and Harris and Biden. And then as soon as that mask is unveiled and you realize that actually you are allowed to hate it now that Trump is the one doing it, they've realized themselves that actually you can't support what Israel's doing. And we've seen support for Israel cratering. And that's not just amongst young people. It's cratering amongst like mainstream liberal Democrats as well. And so we're also seeing, outside of the GOP, we're also seeing a huge disconnect amongst Democratic voters, the similar way we're seeing in Europe, between what their politicians represent and support and what their party voters represent and support. And we're seeing the reality of this when it comes to the New York mayoral primary, or the New York City mayoral primary, in the Zohran Mamdani is not seeing any public backlash outside of the establishment.
Yeah.
Regular voters aren't moving away from him because he's not pro-Israel. And again, they can't even disarm him when he says shit like, I think it should be a state with equal rights, right? Where you immediately undermine the ethno-state nature of Israel, and liberals have no way of being able to repudiate that because that's the beliefs they say they have with regards to migration and culture in the United States. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description, and if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.